Hey Shakers, and welcome to Worth Your Salt, the podcast that shakes up your marketing game in the health and wellness industry. Worth Your Salt is brought to you by Salt Marketing. Salt Marketing helps health and wellness practitioners build trust and authority to attract a steady stream of inbound wellness seekers. For more information, you can visit us online at saltmarketing.co. I'm Jennifer Oraqua, StoryBrand Certified Guide, Marketing Strategist with Salt Marketing, and your host for today's episode of Worth Your Salt. Now, building a community-driven brand isn't just about creating a business. It's about fostering connections and authenticity and shared values. The health and wellness industry is literally saturated with products and services, and that's why a community-driven brand stands out as more than just a transaction. It becomes a movement and a shared experience where your audience feels heard and valued. So in today's episode, we're diving deep into the world of building a community-driven brand. And let me tell you, it's going to be a game changer for your business journey. Bianca Sprague, doula, educator, and founder of Bebo Mia, has the strategies and insights that you need to make sure your brand not only stands out, but leaves a lasting impact. Her vision is about building relationships that extend beyond the transactional, creating an ecosystem where her community has become an integral part of Bebo Mia's brand story and vice versa. So grab your favorite notebook and get ready to take some seriously actionable notes. Trust me, by the end of this episode, you're going to be ready to level up your brand with a loyal and engaged community that not only supports your business, but actively participates in its growth. I can't wait to dig into this topic. Bianca, thank you so much for joining me on Worth Your Salt today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Now, I know that today you believe a community-driven brand can tap into the power of collective passion and driving brand loyalty and advocacy. But did you start out to build a company, or did you start out to build a community? I'd love to hear about what led you to become a doula and how that journey ultimately inspired the creation of Bebo Mia.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say both. But I would say Bebo Mia was born out of a series of problems. So I would say the first problem was I felt really lost after having my daughter. She's almost 17, so it was a while ago. I had to work so hard to get the birth I wanted. I was in a domestic violence situation. I was under-resourced. I didn't have family close to me. And I went through birth and I on the other side of it was like, what just happened to me? And I knew there was a problem. Well, at first I just thought it was me, actually, to be honest. But within about a week or two, I realized that was problem one, is that moms and primary parents were birthing in chaos and were parenting in chaos. Like, there was no support. There was no support for, mind, body, spirit, the physical, financial, like any of it. And so in that experience of having so little support, so much rage, again, that unsafe living situation, it left me feeling really confused about how I felt about motherhood. And so I started talking to people and very quickly realized I could solve this. This is all like very rapid, like day, something new was popping up and I was fixing it. And I actually quit my med school path and I went to take a doula training because I realized the role that my childbirth educator and doula had in my pregnancy was the one I wanted to have. My personal brand grew really quickly. I had, a full client roster because I was so solution driven. And so that came across. So, that was kind of my first indicator that I was more interested in solving a problem and creating a movement. And I knew because I had a full roster, if I had more doulas, I could have an even more full roster. So I started the first agency in Toronto. And so I was like, okay, well, how do I make this happen? It was still a brick and mortar. They came to our clinic in Toronto and learned there. But then more people wanted it. So my next solution was, how do I do this at scale and not lose that really tight community that we had built in Toronto? So in 2012, we actually moved exclusively online and spent, every day, but a real solid, 5 years of mastering how do we stay in the digital space without losing that grassroots community feel that we were really proud of.
That's brilliant and fascinating because you were so far ahead of the curve in terms of taking everything online, taking everything virtual. Yeah, that's really fascinating. Most people, their turning point was the pandemic and where they were forced to do something. But it sounds like you were way ahead of that. So
I have some notes about that, Jennifer. So we cover that later on.
Definitely. We'll definitely talk about that. So tell me, you're a self-identified super lesbian, a dedicated mom. How has your unique perspective influenced your approach to supporting women and queer individuals in the fields of fertility and birth and postpartum care?
Oh, it's popped up so many. I love that question. It's popped up all over the place because I would say, my experience as a queer parent is informed a whole bunch of, really wonderful gifts, as well as things that I learned about society and, homophobia and parenting. And my daughter's racialized. So, having a queer family that's mixed race and like all these really complicated issues, living with invisible disabilities, like, really getting to experience all of these areas of marginalization. But at the same time, I know the places I have of privilege, and I'm also, a sober feminist killjoy. But there was this huge spectrum of what care looked like for folks who were queer, gender expansive, fat, deemed too old or too young, racialized, living with disabilities. Like it was so much worse. And witnessing, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of babies born, and witnessing how our society valued certain groups, and then how they didn't value how their children were coming into this world and how the parents were being treated. Mm-hmm. I want joy back into that experience, and have parents feel empowered and feeling really like excited to parent, and rather than the chore of parenting, which is really what most people get to do, is those, I break it up into two silos, the work of parenthood and the relationship of parenthood. And we're constantly just doing the work, registering, driving, buying presents, wrapping stuff, filling out forms, going to meetings, negotiating play dates. That's all the work stuff. And then we actually don't get to do the relationship part. And so, I have all these buckets of things that are rooted in grief or anger. And it just comes through in everything that I'm doing.
I mean, I love how passionate you are. And it's so funny because you talk about the work of parenting versus those relationship things. My thing as a parent, I always said I wanted to raise adults that I like to hang out with. Yeah. So like that was my whole goal in parenting, building that relationship always. And I love how passionate you are about your mission. But I want to learn a little bit more about how building community within Bebo Mia, how does that support your drive to reach and help more people with this passion that you have?
Well, it's my everything. At first, actually, that was a big shift, Jennifer, as my ego, took a kicking as you get older. At first, I really thought like I was going to be the savior, and it was going to be me. And I had a really like traditional hierarchy in my organization. And as I healed and learned and failed again, and then succeeded, and like this really incredible learning curve that I've been on, both as a human, a parent, and an entrepreneur, I realized I am a tiny, tiny speck in all of this. And the only way that we're going to make moves in anything, feminist business, reproductive health, a protection of joy in our families and our households, money moving in feminist flow, like any of it, we have to be reaching across industries, and reaching across these perceived barriers. And I know those people that are really surprised. I work with, for example, a lot of deeply religious folks that I know probably, if we were outside of the fight for reproductive justice, would probably have a lot to say about my queerness. But I can happily challenge abortion law with them if, we're all in support of the same goal. And so together we can demand better for mothers and birthing parents, and for birth and for babies. And days that I feel flat or like I just want to stay in bed, everyone has those. It takes about 10 seconds for me in working hours to think about what is happening to the population that I've made my life's work to protect. And it's like a spring to get me out of bed. And, we hold each other accountable when we gather together and when we link arms. And so the community piece is really critical. And it's something that I'm really proud of, that we also teach the humanity part of it, because it's really easy to cut people down and to, like cancel culture. We speak out passionately against it because we can accomplish way more.
And I can hear through all of that, everything that you're saying, that teaching thread kind of runs through everything. Like you're keeping people focused, we've got to do these things together. So tell me a little bit more about the teaching aspect. What's the role that having community plays in the learning of this?
Oh, I love teaching so much. It takes up about 90% of my work week. Well, actually that and like all the behind the scenes stuff. I think teaching it comes out in everything that I'm doing. And it's really, I honor where I'm now considered an elder in my industry. I also honor where I look to my elders and learn from them. And so if I'm not teaching, I'm connecting, like actively connecting. But like set your goal that you want to meet 10 people a week and find them online, find them in your local neighborhood. If you're a chiropractor, or you're I don't know, all the things that we're doing in the helping and healing field, go talk to them and go find people who are aligned with your values and see how you can work together and learn from them and teach them your things. And then they will be your cheerleaders, and they're also talking to people in your industry.
Yeah.
There are lots of products and services that can do something different, but probably you're all the people listening to this podcast. 99% of you will have to go back to what's happening in your community, going to free events, meeting people on social media, and then booking dates to go, see them in real life, going into local stores and seeing how you can collaborate, like true collaborations again.
All right, Bianca, I am so inspired by your perspective, the idea of networking and actually talking to people in person, all the authentic ways that you've built community around what you do best, even just, setting a goal of having 50 people that you're going to talk with. But I do have to take a quick break right now. When we come back, I want to talk with you about what you think are the essential tools, the inspiration we need to carve a path toward a thriving, inclusive, community-driven brand. We'll be right back.
The Worth Your Salt podcast is grateful to our partners and sponsors, including Interview Valet. Are you podcast guesting or podcast guessing? Interview Valet's proven podcast guesting system provides the fastest way for you to maximize your ROI on every podcast interview. Don't guess if podcast interviews are a great marketing strategy for your business. The Interview Valet's team understands that podcast guesting extends far beyond the interview. Their unparalleled certified guest service is a marketing system designed for results, empowering you with the tools to drive success. Join the ranks of industry thought leaders who have discovered the power of leveraging other people's audiences. Interview Valet's certified guests have been on more than 75,000 podcast interviews, with more than 200 million listens. So don't guess at guesting. Let Interview Valet help you build authority in all the right places. To get started, head to interviewvalet.com and take their free assessment to find out if guest podcasting is right for your business. That's interviewvalet.com.
I'm back here on the Worth Your Salt podcast with Bianca Sprague, doula, educator, a champion for her community, and of course, owner of Bebo Mia. So, Bianca, what strategies have you used to differentiate Bebo Mia in the marketplace? And when you think about that marketing, what do you think has been the most effective in expanding your reach and your influence?
Back to my earlier point around that everybody jumping into the digital space for education, especially with the pandemic, a lot of people out of necessity had to pivot and move into the digital space. And, some universities and schools and private colleges started doing it. And then it kind of started this ripple. And so we spent, almost 8 years before the pandemic mastering building community and teaching a program that's really intimate and making sure it was as close to being in a live classroom as possible. And so it was a bit unfortunate for us that there was so much noise in the digital education space that we've had to get really creative and work way harder for people to know that there's a difference. So the last couple of years has been really challenging. I was really enjoying the 15-year coast.
Right. When you were the only one out there doing it, right?
Yeah. And so I've been wildly creative, and I had to tap into my baby entrepreneur energy again. When I think about what I did in year 1 to 4, I've had to find that again, which is hard when I was slowing down. Our careers do have a natural progression of things. We offer free therapy to our students and our alumni because we go in knowing that there's secondary trauma as a helper and a healer, especially in reproductive health. And so we want to make sure that they're, mentally taken care of and that, their hearts are safe and we're not sending out unhealed helpers and healers. We have, we're deeply committed to accessibility tools. We offer student care in multiple languages. So the classroom is taught in English, but there's breakout sessions and self-segregated spaces that allow people to, from different countries and regions, to receive care from our staff in multiple languages. And we really want people to feel like they're at college or university, but with the best parts of it, like the social and the club and community part of it. And this can be really profound for a lot of our students who didn't have the opportunity to go to traditional post-secondary school. And so all of these are these strategies that every person that comes through has had a profound experience.
So as the community grows, and we kind of touched on this a minute ago, but I really want to dig into a little bit about how you maintain that personalized and supportive atmosphere. You mentioned you have people that reach back out. I mean, this is really a crucial element of people who are seeking doula care and training. So how do you do that?
We don't want people to just get the skills. And that's what is usually focused on these kinds of certifications and programs. So we want them to have business training, because unless you're picked up by a hospital program or an agency, you have to start a business and pick a thing, like even chiropractic, like all of these specialties. They're like, okay, now you're a massage therapist, go.
hope you know how to get clients.
Good luck with your business. And then most of them fail because, over 90% of people who take a weekend doula training do not start their doula practice or try and don't succeed at it. And that's really sad, because that's a lot of folks who came up with the tuition, B, negotiated their time. And we know what that looks like for a lot of people in a hetero context, like deal making, so much preparation to be able to leave to go to school for 3 days. And then nothing happens with it. And so we have a feminist business training that starts from week 3 and runs throughout their whole program that they do, building their business in tiny bits, really understanding mission and vision and values.
Yeah. So tell me, I really just want to dig into this a little bit. How do you ensure that inclusivity and that diversity of your community? I mean, there's so many unique challenges that are faced by individuals within the whole realm of birth and parenthood. So that's a lot to wrap your arms around. So how do you go there with the inclusivity and the diversity of your community?
Oh, we do this so well. Like, it's one of the things I'm the most proud of. Representation matters. And it's really, really hard to find true representation, not tokenism. So we made a commitment to have true representation of as many, lived experiences, equity-seeking groups, stories, narratives, beliefs. Like, we want them all in that space. And it is challenging. But if you center non-dominant culture, it completely changes the narrative. And so we're very intentional. Everybody on the team is really intentional with our language, because language matters. It has the ability to connect, or it has the ability to absolutely, create so much divide and conflict. We start, teaching our students about these concepts. And by the end of it, I've had people who will say a sentence like, so when I'm working with pregnant folks and they bring their partner or partners, if they have them, into the room, and I'm like, that's amazing, because we're, it's different when you're talking one-on-one. So like, Jennifer, the more I know about you, I would obviously not need to do all of that. But when we're talking to folks that we don't know, or to a large group, it's really powerful. And so we had these conversations that are profound. So our teachers, both the ones that have been intentionally hired at the beginning, as well as whoever comes up as we go through, we make sure there's lots of stories shared. Our topics cover, really surprising things. And then our reading list is incredible. We review it, 3 or 4 times a year. And we make sure that as many of the books on there are from, folks that don't get a platform, who want to share about, parenting with various disabilities, or ensure that we have marginalized folks and folks from equity seeking groups who are the center of what we're talking about, whether it's birth trauma or, feeding from our bodies. And these kind of tweaks, because a lot of times people are like, well, I don't really see myself in this now. And I'm like, but you see yourself everywhere. And if you have these shifts in understanding, that's where we can join together and see more similarities. And that's where change can happen. And that's where business growth can happen. Like, not only do I want to see society better and parents healing and babies surviving, but these are also ways you can create really amazing movements and move money from stagnant places into feminist flow.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure everybody heard what you said in that last bit about the fact that teachers in your community it's comprised of anyone willing to share their experiences. I think that's a really important thing to note in terms of building community. So in that light of that, can you share some success stories of how the Bebo Mia community has positively impacted all of the people that you touch?
Oh my gosh. I keep a folder. I recommend this, actually. I'm going to give a little pro tip here. Keep a folder of emails for like entrepreneurs out there, because it can be rough. Like, it's rough out there as an entrepreneur. It can be quite lonely. So keep a folder of testimonials and love notes and photos that people send you, and your own notes that you've kept. So if a patient or client comes into your clinic or into your practice or, whatever, after your care is done, even if they didn't send it to you, make a note of it because those are the things that get us through the dark times or when you feel like, where are my clients?
Oh, wow.
Like those are the times where you want to give up. This love note folder is so helpful. It's like this beautiful hug when you feel like no one's acknowledging you or recognizing you. And, the previous question, I would also say, like, just be prepared to be surprised and be prepared here to be surprised of how impactful these things are. So that's my pro tip because I use my love notes folder quite often.
Yeah, I love that idea. Absolutely.
One of our students is in the MENA region. I wanted to do a focus the Middle East and North Africa. And so I was collecting stories from my students from the MENA region. And I had her on. And as I was prepping for my live interview with her, I was like, oh my God, her following is incredible. Like, we're so lucky we attract these kind of students. This was my thought process. Yeah. And in my interview, I was like, so what happened for you, Noor? Like, how did you grow that you're now in like Vogue Egypt and like you have the essentially you're the leading expert in reproductive health and justice in your community or in this whole giant region of the planet? And she's like, well, everything I learned was from Bebo Mia. I wasn't doing any of this before.
How funny. How funny that you admire. It's like a mutual admiration society.
Yeah.
I love it.
I was like, thank you for taking time out of your massive movement. Yeah. And she's like, I built this as an alumni. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. So that's really cool because she's talking about concepts that are have historically been prohibited from being discussed. And I just feel really proud of what she's doing there. Yeah. We have a scholarship program that we're also wildly proud of. So we ensure low and no income folks get access to our program to develop the skills. A lot of times they're from equity seeking groups. So we want people from community to go in and provide care and education, as well as learn how to grow a business so that they can find safe housing, that they can get debt free, that they can buy a car, that they can get their kid braces. It doesn't matter. You get to do whatever you want with your money. But the fact they go from have not to have, all while being an amazing beacon of hope and education and care and love in their communities, it's amazing. So anyway, we have so many success stories and movements. Oh, one of my other favorite ones is in Brooklyn. It's called the Sisterhood of Birth Workers, and it's a bunch of our alumni, and they are working with the policies in New York to ensure low and no income families have doula care and doulas are getting paid. And so they are wildly busy. They do amazing product drives and donations from major corporations to ensure, that there's diapers and food and strollers and car seats being distributed to families who are predominantly Black and Brown. Yeah.
Well, and clearly your passion is just contagious. I mean, just the energy you have around this, your heart at the center of it. I mean, I could just see how the right people gravitate toward you to carry this forward into the world. So I find that amazing.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Bianca, it's time for another quick break. We're going to be right back after this. You're listening to the Worth Your Salt podcast. I'm Jennifer Oraqua, and today I'm talking with Bianca Sprague of Bebo Mia about how you can make a bigger impact through community. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to join Salt Marketing over on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook, and let us know how you think building community impacts the work that you do and the way that you serve. So, Bianca, in the health and wellness industry in particular, we talk a lot about the importance of authenticity in our marketing, of maintaining your unique brand voice. And I imagine that's particularly challenging in a practice like doula care, where there can be a lot of dissenting opinions, to have that individuality. So how do you ensure that your voice remains true in your marketing and your promotion?
Oh, this was a steep learning curve. I would say, really in summary, we got really clear on our compass and we do not waver from it. And some of that, we had an idea around it that I would say was pretty good in 2019. We had a lot of eyes on us in 2020 because people cared about racism for a minute. And that was really exciting for us because we've been deeply
for a minute. Yeah. That's so sad that you say that.
Well, it's true. Everyone everyone wanted to sign up for our intersectionality 101 course and and then we had a cancellation in 2021 and we were media misrepresented. We had somebody who came forward and said they worked for us and didn't get paid and they'd never worked for us. And it was actually their marketing tactic because their discount code was F Bebo Mia. And so they essentially wrote on our
Wow.
on our brand voice, and so it started kind of like this race war in our industry, digital space. Interestingly, everybody that was, quote, canceling us, or, it was actually really terrible. I speak glibly about it right now because I've done my healing work around it. But at the time, it was a nightmare. Like, I got doxxed. I had to move. I lost a lot of staff. My mental health plummeted. I lost my, friends, like people like pull away from you. They pull away from businesses. I talk tons about cancel culture. So if anybody here has been canceled or is in the process, please reach out, because the punishment of media shaming and like public shaming is so cruel, and it never matches whatever was done, because the people we should quote be using this tool for are unshameable. And so unfortunately, it becomes this like lateral violence in the helping and healing field, and particularly for women. And so being canceled has some pros. I mean, it was terrible, and I'm still actually like healing and growing from it. But one of the great things is once you've been canceled, you really know what to do. Like it's happened, like the worst thing has happened. I remind anybody that essentially is in thought conflict with somebody else, that I'm like, it doesn't really matter, because the bigger issue is not at the individual level. It's at the society level. So I'm fine with difference. And I think once because I used to fight to the death around my ideas, and I hated being wrong. And as soon as I gave that up, which happened somewhere maybe around 40, that I was like, oh, I love being wrong, because I learn so much. I love when people have a different opinion, but when people have just like different ideas or different perspectives, they're like, well, I don't know. I think what this thing is doing is actually really in service of birthers. And I'm like, tell me more about that, because it helps you form to understand who's for you and who's not, and how you can really clearly call to people. And so one of the things that I wanted was, when I was building my community, so I have a tight bubble that's students and like folks that are engaged in education with us. And then I have a bubble that's a little bit further out. So those would be like mailing list folks, social media followers, people in our free Facebook group. And so I have kind of like the main bubble, and then like the soft bubble that's on the outside. The main bubble, I am so clear with like, there's no room for oppression here. We can learn. So if you're confused about a concept, this is a safe and brave place to learn that. And we monitor it so carefully. And I lead by example. So when I make a mistake, I'm like, you guys, I did that wrong. Who wants to help me? And if that's too much emotional labor, what do we do here? And as soon as I started doing that in the tight bubble, it meant that many more people were doing what I was doing in the tight bubble out in the like soft bubble. And then hopefully in the world at large, but it's really hard. And so that comes through in all of our marketing, that comes through in all of our promotion. And as soon as somebody, challenges it in a like a way that's not in service, it's not going to be, there's not going to be progress made from that. I give an opportunity, and my team gives an opportunity, like, hey, do you want to consider this? Or would you like to have a call and talk about this? And then if it's like a double down on that, we remove them and we block them and we kick them off our channel. And like, we do the things because I'm not here for debating those things. We're very clear. We have to bring humanity and care back to every person, and every person deserves it. But it's not for me to guide every person to understand that.
Yeah. And I'm really curious because, when you talk about, non-productive comments and people coming back at you and things like that, how do you approach the creation of your original content? So you're trying to build community and share your vision and your mission. So how do you come at original content? How do you get your concepts? How do you make that happen?
I would say depending on mood, this is an easier thing, because I know sometimes when it's like lows or something's hard in the business, I feel more impacted by people around me, like, other social media channels, other experts. Somebody will announce that they've written a book and they'll send me into like the depths of despair. And so I have moments where I can tell, even like a post will go up and I was like, oh, I did that because I saw somebody did that and got 16,000 likes. And that's not me. And that's not us.
Yep.
And so I'm really clear what I want to accomplish with Bebo Mia. And I have a non-hierarchical organization. We actually have a really cool organizational chart and a template that we share please cite anything that you've taken from my site. You're welcome to use it, but citation is a feminist practice. That would be wonderful. I'm clear as the the founder and the visionary and the person who's ultimately responsible for things going wrong. And we got to all celebrate if things go right. And so I'm wildly clear what we're here for. And I'm very clear what we're not here for. If I can navigate through those very deep concepts at the personal level, when we put it in a professional context, I can navigate through anything that's unpopular. Like, again, anytime there's a quote call out or somebody's publicly being held accountable, I always reach out and I start with, I'm actually not here to amplify any like one of you's right or wrong. I'm here because I feel personally harmed by the other narrative. And so I'm not the right person to support them, but I hope they have somebody that's supporting them to make sure that they get care and that they get love and that this stops and this goes offline. And that, to land at a place that I feel really confident with that, you have to have a very, very clear vision and mission and be creative around it and know that people aren't going to like it. And you have to lay your head down at night and feel good about it. And it's this concept of eudaimonia. And I literally every night lay my head down and I know I did everything with the most integrity and that if anything's pinging at me, the next day I have to like clean it up, whatever it is.
And I think that's a true reflection of authenticity. I love that you said that. So I want to kind of turn a little bit back toward the business side of things. Your website includes the Bebo Mia store. You've got a dozen different courses available. You've got the ability to search for Bebo Mia doula. You've clearly built these processes that have allowed you to kind of keep your attention more on your mission and less on the administrative tasks. So is there anything you can share about that building a community while running a business?
As a recovering type A person, I think there's the 7 Habits, which a lot of it holds up really well. I re-listened to that book over the holidays and I was like, wow, Stephen, you got some stuff to say here. But there's a quadrant in there that's urgent and important. But I think the idea of what is urgent and important, because my type A personality, I would be buried in the minutia of working in my business and not on my business. Vice versa. You know what I mean? And so I could easily get buried in the administrative tasks. And sometimes I start a spreadsheet and I spend all this time doing it and I share it with the team and I'm like, here's our new tool. And then I realized 3 days in that like, I forgot to fill it out for a week. And then I'm like, okay, clearly that didn't work. And I need to circle back to the team to be like, that was Bianca's type A thing that was controlling something that just do it organically. So I'm recovering. So I have to work on that. But when I step back and think, so the email is a good example. I kept my email open and I would be on top of it all the time. And then I did a test because I was challenged in a mastermind group of being like, what would happen if you didn't answer your emails? And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I tried it and realized I gained 3 hours of my day back. Now I do a skim in the morning and I fight the urge to click things that I can logically make important. But I do a skim to see like if a client got back to me or there's something like, I don't know, a payment failed because my card expired, like, or those kind of urgenty things. And then I just leave it. My inbox right now, okay, if anybody else is type A, you'd understand how terrible this is. It's at about 520 emails in it. But that I don't want to mark unread because I feel like they all still need something about it. But I'm in process. So like this is a step in the right direction. But I cannot believe how much time I got back. And I think that if you step back and remember what your mission is, my mission is to make sure way more people survive their labor and delivery, and not only survive, that they feel absolute joy when they reflect upon it. But like, this is the threshold that I want. And so when I'm tinkering with something, the mantra good is good enough is actually really helpful. Because I used to think people said that because they were sloppy and lazy. And so I
don't they?
And then I realized there was something like there was a formatting. There's a website a web page that I've built for you, Jennifer, and I'll share it with you in a minute. But I had a formatting issue and I opened it like 4 times and I spent about 15 minutes and then I stopped and I was like, A, no one will probably notice this. And B, you could have done some really cool stuff over that 30 minutes you've spent either thinking about or actively trying to fix something that tech just wasn't going to be your friend. Because any other time it has never been an issue. Like move on, Bianca, move on. And so I think when you have so many balls in the air, like I've sillily created for myself, you have to do a reprioritization. Now, I also have a pro tip here that I have too many balls. And as I go into my business, I have less interest in having 700 moving parts. And so there is a time when you might have the energy and you would find that actually fun and fulfilling. A lot of the moving parts in my movement, I do not find fulfilling anymore. And so I now in 2024, every month I'm doing essentially an audit, but I check in to be like, do I like doing this anymore? And even the return on its investment is weighted less than if I like doing it. So if I get an email about something and I'm like, ugh, I forgot I have to take care of that. Then I look at it and I'm like, then I think that series should be cut. I don't want to do that series anymore. Even if people are like, oh, I love that series. Like, I don't like it. And if I don't like it, I send an energy out in the world, whether it's to my team or my community, that there's something not awesome about it. Yep. And so I think that right now I have a sign that's like a Post-it that says community first. And I have another sign that says women remembering, because I want women to remember their power. I want queer folks to remember their power. I want us to participate in the world so fully and robustly. And so when I think of some of the tinkering, unfortunately, some of those tasks have been like CRA, which is our like government accounting and stuff, that I'm like, oh, right. I've lost interest in you. So some of them I have to figure out a workaround because I'm no longer interested in doing them, but they legally have to get done. So I haven't solved that, but I do know community building, community first, women remembering, and having a really nice succession plan is my focus right now. So thank you for listing all those cool things I'm doing. I bet if you check back in June, half of them will be gone.
So, all right, you've talked about this landing page that you've made for us. So where can Worth Your Salt listeners go to learn more about you, about Bebo Mia, or even get involved in your community themselves?
Yes, we have made a landing page for all of you amazing listeners out there. And it's at bebomia.com/WYS. And again, that's Bebo Mia, BEBOMIA.com/WYS. And we have a code. So it's 15% off everything using the code WYS15. And so we have some freebies, we have some offers, and it will put you in our site there so you can check out anything you want.
That's amazing. And of course, the links to everything that Bianca mentioned will be available on our website at saltmarketing.co. But right now, Bianca, it is time for our lightning round questions. These are a few quick questions that I like to ask of every guest. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. So the first question is, what is something about you that surprises people?
Oh, I am super scared of sharks. Like, I can't even look at photos of them. Like, I feel like I'm going to pass out if I see a video of them. Oh, wow. I don't go in water because of it. And yes, any mental health folks out there, it is rooted in childhood trauma. So no need to worry about me. It's handled.
My husband has a similar fear. We have shark bands that we have to put around our ankles before we go in the water that are supposed to repel them. I don't know if it works or not, but it makes him feel better. So
he goes in the water with this fear? Brave.
Yeah, but he has the ankle band, so he thinks it makes you look like you're under house arrest, but it's all good. So, all right, next question. I know you have a book club. So what is the best book that you've read recently?
Oh, I read so many books. Okay, so this is a tricky one. I would say for my fiction, I've read a couple great books recently. One is Go as a River, or Did You Hear About Kitty Carr? But for nonfiction, which some of you might be more interested in hearing about, I reread Hook Point. And I liked that book a lot. It gives some really fun ideas. I actually listened to it while I was driving across the country, and then I promptly ordered it while I was at a red light on. So I had a hard copy when I got home.
Sometimes you just need that hard copy to go back to. I hear you. All right. Next question is, what is your favorite thing about the work that you do?
I think I'm a toss up. So I'd say knowing me and my team and Bebo Mia students and alumni are changing the world. And we do it by protecting birth and parents and babies. But it's also unbelievable that as a doula, I get to witness the absolute magic of birth. Like I still, every single time I'm in that space, cannot believe what I just had the honor of, being asked to be a witness and a protector and an educator and an advocate there. It's true magic.
Yeah. I can't imagine another career where you would be so inspired. All right. Last question. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Oh, get funding and financing when you have money and not when you need the loan or credit.
Yep. That is good business advice. I've heard that one myself.
I was given that one. It's a good one. And I didn't follow it. And I wished I had.
Well, there you go. All right. I just want to thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Worth Your Salt.
Thank you so much for having me, Jennifer. I love your podcast and your questions are amazing.
Thank you. I also want to thank our listeners and let you know that if you're ready for your Worth Your Salt debut, tell us about your expertise by emailing us at grow@saltmarketing.co. Of course, be sure to subscribe on our website so you never miss an episode. Finally, leave us a review or give the show a handful of stars wherever you get your content. That's all for this episode of Worth Your Salt. Be sure to join us again next time. In the meantime, let's get out there and shake things up. And we're out. That was so much fun. Thank you. I love interviewing somebody who just has that passion and that joy about what they do. It's just, it's fantastic.
Thank you.